Let me guess. When you hear Russia, you picture Moscow or St. Petersburg. Maybe snow, maybe palaces. And yes, they're all coming up later in this video. But if that's all you know about Russia, you're about to be completely surprised. Because this country is not what you think. It has a lake older than humanity, a road built by prisoners that no one dares finish, and a mountain taller than anything else in Europe, surrounded by abandoned tombs carved into the rock. In this video, we'll go through a series of mind-blowing facts, the kind that make you question everything you thought you knew. Then, we'll travel through the most extraordinary places in Russia, starting in the Far East and ending where most tourists begin. You think you know big, but Russia redefines it. This is a country so vast, it touches the Pacific and the Baltic, the Arctic Ocean and the Caspian Sea. It spans 11 time zones. If the sun rises at 8 a.m. in one Russian town, it's already setting in another on the same day. And while you're eating breakfast in one region, someone else is heading to bed thousands of kilometers away, and they're still in the same country. But it's not just the size that's staggering. It's what's inside that space. In the far north, there are towns where winter lasts 9 months, and daylight disappears completely for weeks at a time. In those places, people paint their windows with warm colors to trick their minds into feeling Sunday And then there's a place so cold, you can throw boiling water into the air and it turns to snow before it hits the ground. This isn't a myth. It happens in Oymyakon, one of the coldest inhabited places on Earth. Temperatures here can drop to 1 degree Celsius or 5 degree Fahrenheit. In the dead of winter, birds freeze mid-flight. Eyelashes turn to icicles. Batteries die in minutes. Locals leave their cars running all day because if they stop, the engine might never restart. But then, just a few thousand kilometers south, it's a completely different world. In the region of Kalmykia, you'll find Buddhist temples rising from flat, golden plains. The people here speak their own language, follow Tibetan traditions, and practice silent walking meditation in sand gardens. There's even a massive public square built entirely for chess. No, really, Kalmykia's capital once hosted the World Chess Championship. The president of the region was so obsessed with the game, he made it mandatory in schools. In another part of Russia, signs are written in Yiddish. That's not a typo. In the Jewish Autonomous Region, created under Stalin, you'll still find street signs in both Russian and Hebrew script. It's a ghost of a utopia that never fully came to be. But the surprises don't stop there. Russia has a secret city network. During the Cold War, dozens of towns were wiped off maps. No names, no official existence. People who lived in them had special passports and couldn't leave without government permission. Many of these places were built around nuclear research, rocket production, or chemical testing. Some are still closed to this day. And here's the part that almost no one talks about. The Trans-Siberian Railway, the longest railway line on Earth, quietly passes near these ghost towns. It stretches nearly 9,300 kilometers, or about 5,800 miles, from Moscow to Vladivostok. To put that in perspective, that's like riding a train from New York to Los Angeles, and then continuing on to Anchorage, Alaska. But what's even more surreal is this. There's a town in Russia where you can walk from Asia to Europe in under 2 minutes. A simple bridge over a narrow river marks the official division between continents. On one side, Asia. On the other, Europe. People come here to take selfies with one foot in each world. And if you think that's strange, wait until you hear this. Russia once tried to drill to the center of the Earth. In the 1970s, Soviet scientists began boring a hole in the Kola Peninsula. They drilled for over 20 years, reaching a depth of 12,262 meters. That's about 40,230 feet, or more than 7.6 miles straight down. They discovered ancient fossils, new forms of bacteria, and temperatures so high the metal equipment started to warp. Then one day, they just stopped. The project was abandoned without warning. The site still exists today, covered by a rusted metal lid. No explanation, no answers. Now imagine this. In some parts of Russia, entire lakes glow in the dark. This isn't science fiction. In late summer, certain remote lakes begin to shimmer with blue bioluminescence, thanks to rare microorganisms. Locals call them living lights. They appear for just a few days each year, and then vanish. No one knows exactly when or where they'll return. Even time works differently here. There's a part of Russia so remote that there are no time zones, not officially. The locals just use Moscow time because it's easier than syncing clocks to the rest of the country. Planes, trains, schools, all run on a time zone thousands of kilometers away. And what about space? Russia was the first country to send a human into orbit. But here's something less known. In the 1980s, it also tried to build a reusable space shuttle called Buran. The Soviet shuttle flew once, perfectly, and landed automatically with no crew inside. Then funding disappeared. The project was buried, and the actual spacecraft now sits abandoned. You could argue that Russia is a country of extremes, geographically, politically, culturally. But maybe it's not about extremes. Maybe it's about contradictions. where you can ride a camel in the south and drive a dog sled in the north, where Buddhist monks meditate in frozen silence and submarines patrol beneath Arctic ice, where ancient tribes, Cold War secrets, and space technology all exist within the same borders. This is Russia, not the one from travel brochures, the one that bends logic, breaks expectations, and refuses to be understood in a single image. And we're just getting started. Now that you've seen what lies behind the curtain, it's time to travel across Russia, place by place, starting in the Far East and ending in the cities you thought you already knew. There's no road that takes you here. No railway, no highway, just wilderness, volcanoes, and silence. Kamchatka is one of the most remote and untouched regions on Earth, and most Russians have never even been here. To get there, you have to fly over thousands of kilometers of empty land. And when you land, you'll feel like you're on another planet. This peninsula is home to over 300 volcanoes, 29 of them still active. Mount Klyuchevskaya, the tallest, rises 4,750 meters. That's over 15,580 feet, and it still rumbles. Lava glows beneath the snow. Ash clouds stretch for kilometers, but that's not the strangest part. Deep in the heart of Kamchatka lies the Valley of Geysers, the second largest concentration of geysers in the world. Boiling pools, hissing vents, explosions of steam, and barely any tourists. Why? Because it's only reachable by helicopter. This is not a place for crowds. It's a place where grizzly bears outnumber people, and the earth literally breathes beneath your feet. And here's the crazy part. Despite being one of Russia's greatest natural wonders, Kamchatka isn't even a national symbol. It's a secret world, hiding in plain sight. But not all remote places in Russia are peaceful. Some carry scars that can't be seen on a map, only felt along the road. They call it the Road of Bones, and once you know why, you'll never forget it. Officially, it's part of the R-504 Kolyma Highway, but unofficially, it's a mass grave stretched across 2,000 kilometers. It was built during Stalin's reign by Gulag prisoners in the 1930s and 40s. Thousands died in the brutal cold, buried in permafrost where digging graves was impossible. So the bodies were poured into the foundations. To this day, human remains are still found along the route. And yet, people drive it. Trucks, supply vans, even daring road trippers. But here's the catch. If your car breaks down out here, you're hundreds of kilometers from help. No signal, no villages, just wolves and wind. This is not just a road. It's a scar, a symbol of survival, suffering, and silence. But Siberia doesn't stop there. Deeper inland, nature has carved its own cathedral, high above one of the world's oldest rivers. At first, they look fake, too perfect, too symmetrical. But these massive stone spires are very real, and they stretch for tens of kilometers along the Lena River in eastern Siberia. They're called the Lena Pillars, natural towers made of limestone, some reaching up to 300 meters tall or nearly 1,000 feet. And they rise out of nowhere. No roads lead here. To see them, you have to sail up the Lena River through pristine wilderness. No cities, no noise, just the slow pulse of ancient water. Scientists believe these pillars began forming 500 million years ago in the Cambrian era, and yet they still stand, untouched, as if waiting for something. In winter, they're surrounded by ice fog. In summer, golden light spills through their cracks. And sometimes, just for a moment, they echo, as if the stone remembers everything. Still, almost no one comes. There are no crowds, no tour buses, just cliffs and time. Further south, however, something even stranger rises from the forest. Not cliffs, not rock, sand. A desert? In Siberia? It sounds like a joke, but it's real. The Chara Sands are a patch of golden dunes, about 50 square kilometers wide, roughly 19 square miles, surrounded by snow-capped mountains and dense taiga forest. No one knows exactly how they got here. Some say ancient winds pushed sediment from a long-dried lake. Others claim it's just another Russian anomaly, a place that exists because it shouldn't. The temperature can swing from 30 degrees Celsius, 86 degrees Fahrenheit in summer, to minus 40 in winter. You can hike through sand barefoot while staring at glaciers on the horizon. There's no other desert like it on Earth. No camels, no palms, just silence, and the sound of wind reshaping the past. But just beyond these dunes, the land begins to rise again, not with sand, but stone. Climbers call them the Pillars. But these aren't ruins. They're not even man-made. The Stolby are giant volcanic rock formations, vertical towers of basalt and granite, some rising over 100 meters high, about 330 feet, hidden in the taiga near Krasnoyarsk. But here's the wild part. Locals don't just visit, they scale them without ropes. It's a tradition, a point of pride. They call themselves Stolbists, and they pass secret climbing routes down through generations. There are caves here too, and narrow stone corridors where your shoulders brush both sides. Even legends about shamans who once lived among the cliffs. But tourists? Most stay on the marked trails, because getting lost out here means hundreds of square kilometers of forest and no cell signal. But once you leave the cliffs behind and follow the rivers east, the forest gives way to something else entirely. A body of water so ancient, it defies imagination. Imagine a lake so old, it predates modern humans. Lake Baikal is over 25 million years old. It's the deepest lake on Earth, reaching 1,642 meters, or about 5,387 feet. That's deeper than some ocean trenches, and it holds more fresh water than all the Great Lakes combined. But this lake is more than just deep. It's alive. Baikal is home to over 2,000 unique species, including a freshwater seal found nowhere else on the planet. Its waters are so clear that in winter you can see 40 meters, 130 feet straight down through the ice. And the ice? It cracks. Loudly, the lake sings with deep, echoing booms that sound like something out of science fiction. In summer, Baikal is turquoise. In winter, it becomes a frozen glass road stretching to the horizon. People have tried to measure its bottom. Some say we still haven't found it. Others believe it hides more than just depth. But move further south, and you'll find a very different kind of wonder. One of mountains, meadows, and air so pure it feels untouched. Tucked in the southern heart of Siberia lies one of Russia's best-kept secrets. The Altai Mountains, where Russia meets Kazakhstan, Mongolia, and China, are an alpine world of turquoise lakes, wild rivers, and meadows that bloom for only a few short weeks each year. There are no mega resorts here, no mass tourism, just glaciers, eagles, and silence. This is where you'll find the Katun River, icy blue and crashing through granite canyons, where shepherds still live in traditional yurts, grazing yaks and horses as their ancestors did, and where the night sky is so clear you can see the Milky Way stretching from one side of the horizon to the other. The highest peak, Mount Belukha, rises 4,506 meters, or 14,784 feet, and is considered sacred by local peoples. They say it holds spiritual energy and protects the balance of the earth. But Altai is more than mountains. It's filled with legends and mystery. Thousands of ancient petroglyphs are etched into cliff sides, scenes of hunting, rituals, and cosmic symbols. You'll also find Scythian burial mounds dating back over 2,500 years, some still untouched. Some believe Altai is the real Shambhala, a mythical hidden kingdom of peace and wisdom. Altai doesn't feel like it belongs to modern time. It feels borrowed from a myth and barely holding on to reality. Siberia is vast, and in most of it, stone is rare. But high above the Irtysh River, in the heart of western Siberia, stands something unexpected: the Tobolsk Kremlin, the only stone fortress of its kind in this part of Russia. Its white towers gleam against the sky. Its cathedral domes shine gold in the sunday. But what makes this place truly striking isn't the architecture, it's the history beneath it. Tobolsk was once the capital of the Russian East, a strategic stronghold, a cultural hub, a place where Moscow's power extended into the frontier. Merchants arrive here from China and Persia. Prisoners were sent here from European courts, Even Fyodor Dostoevsky, one of Russia's greatest writers, passed through here as a convict on his way to hard labor. You can walk along the ramparts, hear the echo of boots on cobblestone, and imagine the years ticking slowly by. The bitter winters, the crackling fires, the cold stone walls. Inside the Kremlin grounds, you'll find a blend of Orthodox spirituality and Siberian resilience, a place that feels like both a fortress and a sanctuary. And once you leave its snowy silence behind, the line between Europe and Asia comes into view, not metaphorically, but literally. Yekaterinburg is the line. It sits right on the edge of two continents, a city where you can walk from Europe into Asia in less than 60 seconds. There's even a granite monument marking the divide. Simple, quiet, but symbolic. The skyline is sleek and modern. Skyscrapers shine in glass. Trendy cafes line the river. The streets are filled with students, musicians, and young creatives. And yet, shadows of history stretch long here. In 1918, this is where Tsar Nicholas II and his entire family were executed, ending over 300 years of Romanov rule. Today, the site is marked by a church, candles, and constant remembrance. Pilgrims visit year-round. Locals never forget. There's tension in Yekaterinburg, but it's not negative. It's creative. The city has become a hotspot for contemporary art, experimental theater, and underground music scenes. It's also a tech hub. Some call it Russia's Silicon Ural. But Yekaterinburg is still something else, a gateway. The last major city before the land becomes wilder again and the roads turn toward the mountains. The Ural Mountains aren't dramatic like the Alps. They don't tower. They don't shock. But they divide worlds, stretching for over 2,500 kilometers, more than 1,550 miles, from the Arctic Ocean in the north to the Kazakh steppe in the south. They form the ancient boundary between Europe and Asia. Geologically, they're over 250 million years old. They hold some of the oldest rocks on Earth and some of the rarest minerals, including emeralds, topaz, and even gold. But the Urals are more than stone. They're the backdrop to some of Russia's most enduring mysteries. In 1959, 9 hikers died under chilling and unexplained circumstances in a place now known as the Dyatlov Pass. To this day, theories range from avalanche to military experiment to something else entirely. The Urals are also home to dense forests, deep caves, and remote villages where old traditions still persist, and where folklore often blurs into lived reality. They're not flashy, but they're ancient, solid, enduring. Crossing them feels symbolic, like passing through a hidden gate in the middle of a forest. And when you descend on the other side, something unexpected awaits. A Buddhist capital in the heart of European Russia. It's not what you expect. You're deep in southern Russia, surrounded by endless flatlands, and suddenly, golden domes rise over the horizon. Prayer flags flutter. A stupa gleams in the sunday. Welcome to Elista, the capital of Kalmykia, the only Buddhist majority region in Europe. The people here are descendants of Mongol tribes who migrated west from Central Asia hundreds of years ago. And even today, you can feel the echo of their nomadic past in everything: the language, the rituals, the way the wind moves across the steppe. Elista is calm, bright, slightly surreal. In the city center stands the golden abode of Shakyamuni Buddha, the largest Buddhist temple in Russia. Inside, monks chant prayers in Tibetan. Visitors spin massive golden prayer wheels, and just outside you'll find a chess park. Yes, an actual park dedicated to chess. That's because Kalmykia's former president was not only a Buddhist, he was also a chess grandmaster. He made chess mandatory in schools and built a whole district called Chess City, designed to host global tournaments. It's peaceful here, but also quietly powerful. A reminder that Russia isn't one culture, it's many. And sometimes, the most surprising places are the most serene. If you landed here blindfolded, you'd never guess you were in Russia. Sochi sits on the coast of the Black Sea, wrapped in palm trees, fig trees, and the scent of salt and citrus. In summer, the beaches are packed. The air is hot and humid. Locals sip iced coffee in seaside cafes. It feels more like the Mediterranean than the former Soviet Union. But Sochi isn't just a beach town. Just 50 kilometers inland, about 30 miles, the land rises into snow-covered peaks. This is one of the few places on Earth where you can swim in the morning and ski in the afternoon. In 2014, Sochi hosted the Winter Olympics, and the world got a glimpse of what Russia looks like when it's sunny, colorful, and full of life. There's a modern side too, the Olympic Park, Formula One circuit, massive resorts. But take a turn down a quiet street and you'll find wooden homes covered in vines, old fruit markets, and hiking trails that lead to hidden waterfalls. Sochi is a contradiction. Hot and cold, Soviet and subtropical. And once you leave the coast behind, the road turns steep, climbing into the high Caucasus, where Russia reaches for the sky. It doesn't look real at first. Mount Elbrus rises above the Caucasus like a sleeping titan, snow-covered, silent, and enormous. At 5,642 meters, that's 18,510 feet, it's the tallest mountain in Europe, higher than Mont Blanc, and one of the 7 summits of the world. But here's the twist. Elbrus is actually a dormant volcano. Its twin peaks were formed by long-cooled lava. And even now, there's geothermal heat beneath the glaciers. Climbers come from around the globe to reach the summit. It's not the steepest climb, but it's dangerous because of altitude. Many underestimate it. Some don't come back, yet it draws people in. From Soviet military expeditions to modern-day adventurers, Elbrus has become a symbol of endurance and pride. It even appears in old propaganda posters, towering over brave mountaineers wrapped in red flags. Below the mountain, you'll find quiet villages, ancient stone towers, and winding roads that cling to cliff sides. Shepherds guide their flocks through alpine pastures. Hot springs bubble from the ground. It feels more like Georgia or Azerbaijan. But you're still in Russia. Elbrus is massive, mystical, and unpredictable. And hidden in its shadow is one of the strangest burial sites in the world. High in the mountains of North Ossetia, you round a bend in the road, and everything goes quiet. Stone buildings, dozens of them, sit perched on the slope. They look like tiny houses, or beehives made of bone. This is Dargavs, known as the City of the Dead. It's one of Russia's most mysterious and haunting places. Each structure is a burial crypt, some built over 400 years ago. Inside, archaeologists have found skeletons in wooden boats, even though there's no navigable river nearby. Some believe the boats were meant for the afterlife. Locals used to fear the place. A legend said that anyone who entered would never return. Even today, people approach it with quiet reverence. The layout is symmetrical, almost architectural, like a forgotten village for ghosts. Above, the Caucasus peaks loom, shrouded in mist. Below, the valley spreads like an ancient canvas. There are no fences, no tickets, no signs. Just you and the dead. But as you leave and descend toward the Caspian Sea, you begin to sense time itself shifting, peeling back toward an even older civilization. At Russia's southern edge, where mountains slope into the Caspian Sea, lies a city few outsiders know, yet it may be one of the oldest, continuously inhabited cities in the world. Welcome to Derbent. Settled for over 5,000 years, Derbent sits at the narrowest pass between the Caucasus Mountains and the sea, a strategic choke point. That's why empires fought for it. The Persians, Arabs, Mongols, Ottomans, Russians. The city's defining feature is its ancient wall, built by the Sassanid Empire in the 6th century. It stretches from the mountain ridge all the way to the water, a stone gate across continents. Inside, Derbent is a maze of stone alleys, minarets, old synagogues, and Armenian churches. It's a place where religions intertwine and cultures blend. You'll hear Persian words in the local dialect, eat flatbread cooked in clay ovens, and see architecture that feels more like Iran than Russia. Markets overflow with spices, dried fruits, and pomegranates. In the old citadel, sunlight hits weathered stone that has seen centuries of invasions, trade, and prayer. Derbent isn't loud, it's layered. And as you head north again, following the rhythm of history, you'll reach Russia's most sacred river, wide, slow, and eternal. Some rivers rush. The Volga moves slowly, with gravity, with memory. At 3,530 kilometers, or about 2,194 miles, it's the longest river in Europe. But it's not just long, it's legendary. The Volga flows through the heart of Russia, from the Valdai Hills northwest of Moscow, through historic cities like Kazan, Nizhny Novgorod, and Volgograd, before spilling into the Caspian Sea. It's been called Mother Volga, a symbol of national identity. It appears in poetry, in song, in war stories. Soldiers crossed it, traders sailed it, empires depended on it. Even today, it feeds millions of people, provides energy through hydroelectric dams, and connects vast regions by water. In summer, cruise ships drift past golden churches and wooden villages. In winter, the river freezes solid and becomes a silent highway of ice. Fishermen drill holes through the surface. Families gather for picnics on the snowy banks. The air smells of pine and firewood. The Volga is calm, but beneath that surface flows centuries of memory, both beautiful and brutal. And just beyond its upper reaches lies a city where east meets west in a single glance. From a distance, it looks like a Russian city: onion domes, neoclassical facades, snowy boulevards. But then you see it. A towering white mosque, glowing blue at the top, framed by fortress walls. This is Kazan, the capital of Tatarstan, and one of the most culturally layered cities in Russia. Here, Islam and Orthodoxy coexist side by side. You'll hear both Russian and Tatar spoken on the streets. You'll eat beef pilaf, flatbreads, and dumplings filled with herbs and spice. At the center of it all is the Kazan Kremlin, a UNESCO World Heritage Site, with a Russian Orthodox cathedral on one side and the stunning Kul Sharif Mosque on the other. It feels like East and West are meeting in real time. And that's not just symbolism, it's lived experience. This city has been shaped by Mongol Khans, Russian Tsars, and Soviet commissars. Each left a mark. Kazan is modern too, a university town, a sports capital, a tech hub. But what makes it unforgettable is the way it carries multiple identities at once, effortlessly. And as you leave the city behind, the land opens into rolling countryside. There, hidden in quiet corners, Russia's medieval past still lives on, untouched by time. No skyscrapers, no highways, not even a single apartment block. Suzdal feels like stepping into a fairy tale. A quiet town of wooden houses, grazing cows, and golden domed churches that seem to float above the landscape. It's part of Russia's Golden Ring, a cluster of ancient towns northeast of Moscow, each telling its own chapter of Russian history. But Suzdal is special. It has over 30 churches, 5 monasteries, and a Kremlin, all packed into a town with fewer than 10,000 people. Here, the air smells of smoke from wood-fired stoves. Horses pull carriages through the snow in winter. And in summer, wildflowers bloom around stone walls built centuries ago. The town was once meant to become the spiritual center of Russia, but it was bypassed by railroads and factories. And because of that, it stayed frozen in time. No neon signs, no shopping malls, just silence, history, and beauty. And just when you think it can't get more serene, you head west to another holy place, one still active, still alive, and still full of pilgrims. The gold domes shimmer from miles away. Set against deep green pine forests, the Trinity Lavra of Street Sergius rises like a dream. This is Sergiev Posad, home to the most important monastery in the Russian Orthodox Church, and one of the most revered pilgrimage sites in the country. Founded in the 14th century by Saint Sergius of Radonezh, it has survived invasions, revolutions, and repression. Through it all, the monks never stopped praying. Inside, you'll find icons painted by Andrei Rublev, the most famous iconographer in Russian history. You'll hear bells echoing through stone courtyards, and if you stay long enough, you may hear the deep chants of the monastic choir, rising and falling like waves. Pilgrims come to kiss the relics of saints. Others come for peace. And some just come to watch the light move across ancient frescoes. The atmosphere is both grand and intimate, sacred, but still accessible. And as you leave the quiet of the monastery, the pace of the world speeds up, because just an hour down the road, the capital begins. There's no soft entrance to Moscow. The city doesn't unfold. It explodes with color, size, and speed. Red Square, the Kremlin, St. Basil's Cathedral. It's iconic, yes, but that's just the surface. Moscow is a city of layers. Underneath the churches and palaces is a Soviet metro system so ornate it looks like a palace itself. And above it all, 7 Stalinist skyscrapers pierce the sky, towering, symmetrical, defiant. But it's not all old power. New Moscow is fast, loud, hyper-modern. Glass towers rise in the business district. Coffee shops fill every corner. Tech startups buzz through co-working spaces. And then you turn a corner and find a 19th century courtyard covered in ivy, a poet's statue, a woman playing violin, a market selling homemade jam. That's Moscow. It's not one city. It's 10 cities stacked on top of each other, each with its own rhythm. And just when you think you've grasped it, a bullet train takes you 700 kilometers northwest, nearly 435 miles, to a city built not by nature, but by vision. If Moscow is the heart of power, then St. Petersburg is the soul of poetry. Built by Peter the Great in the 1700s, this city was designed to rival Europe's great capitals, and in many ways, it succeeded. Canals crisscross the center like a frozen Venice. Palaces line the waterfront. Bridges rise and fall each night to let ships pass through. The architecture here is imperial. Wide avenues, pastel facades, and glittering gold leaf. But the emotion? It runs deeper. This is where Dostoevsky walked, where Tchaikovsky composed, where revolutions were born. The Hermitage Museum, once the Winter Palace, holds over 3 million works of art, from Rembrandt to Da Vinci. At night, the city glows. In summer, the sky never darkens. It's called the White Nights, when the sun barely dips below the horizon. St. Petersburg is elegance, nostalgia, and resistance all at once. And beyond its borders, the land turns quiet again, but beauty still waits in the north. It was built to impress, and it still does. Peterhof Palace, often called the Russian Versailles, was the personal dream of Peter the Great. He wanted to show the world that Russia wasn't just powerful, it was refined. Set on the Gulf of Finland, just outside St. Petersburg, Peterhof is a palace, but also a fountain kingdom. The central cascade drops from the palace steps like a waterfall of gold. Dozens of gilded statues spit water into the air. And below, the Grand Canal stretches nearly 400 meters, or over 1,300 feet, toward the sea. But here's the secret. Most of the fountains work without a single pump. They're powered entirely by gravity, an 18th century engineering miracle. Walk through the lower gardens and you'll find trick fountains hidden in hedges, designed to surprise guests with sudden sprays of water. It's playful, lavish, ridiculous, and completely unforgettable. Inside the palace, chandeliers sparkle over parquet floors, and mirrored halls reflect sunlight from every angle. but leave the gold behind and head south. Because deeper inland, in a forest town built for royalty, another palace hides something even more precious. It doesn't look real. The facade is baby blue, trimmed with white and gold. Dozens of windows gleam in the light. And inside, a single room that became one of the greatest mysteries of World War II. This is the Catherine Palace, located in Tsarskoye Selo, outside St. Petersburg. It was the summer residence of Empress Elizabeth and later Catherine the Great. Step into the Amber Room, and you'll understand why it's legendary. Walls covered in amber panels, mirrors, candles, gold leaf. It was considered the eighth wonder of the world. But during World War II, the Nazis looted the Amber Room. It vanished completely. To this day, no one knows where the original panels went. The version you see now is a reconstruction based on old photos and fragments, but it's no less breathtaking. Walk the halls, and it's easy to imagine powdered wigs, court dances, and imperial whispers. Outside, manicured gardens stretch into forests, and swan ponds reflect the fading light. And far from the tourists, deep in a northern lake, monks once carved their own spiritual empire into the wilderness. You can't drive here. To reach Valaam, you have to cross water, Lake Ladoga to be exact, the largest lake in Europe. Set on a forested archipelago, the Valaam Monastery rises from pine trees like something out of a painting. Red stone, blue domes, echoes of chanting carried by wind. Founded over 1,000 years ago, Valaam became a spiritual retreat, a place where monks lived in silence, grew their own food, and studied theology far from the world. Even during Soviet times, when religion was repressed, Valaam survived. Today, it's more than just a functioning monastery. It's a symbol of endurance. The island is quiet, peaceful. Deer walk through the forests. Pilgrims come barefoot down pine trails. At night, the lake reflects stars so clearly, it feels like floating in space. It's hard to believe this is still Russia, the same country with palaces and trains and megacities. But that's the story of Russia. Just when you think you've understood it, something completely different appears, like an island of wooden miracles floating further to the north. No nails, no steel, just wood. And yet the churches of Kizhi Island, in the middle of Lake Onega, have stood for over 300 years. The Church of the Transfiguration is the centerpiece, a wooden masterpiece with 22 domes, each covered in silver aspen shingles that shimmer like fish scales in the light. It was built in 1714, without a single nail. Legend says the builder used one axe, and when he was done, he threw it into the lake so no one could copy him. But this isn't just one church. It's part of an open-air museum, preserving Russia's northern wooden architecture. Houses, barns, mills, all brought here from nearby villages. You can walk through them, see how peasants once lived, and hear folk songs sung in dialects that barely exist anymore. In winter, the lake freezes solid. In summer, it comes alive with birdsong and gentle waves. Kizhi is delicate, humble, sacred, and just a few hours away lies something far more dramatic, a marble canyon filled with water. Near the Finnish border, hidden among forests, lies Ruskeala Marble Canyon, a flooded quarry turned into one of the most surreal natural parks in Russia. The marble here was once used to decorate St. Isaac's Cathedral in St. Petersburg. Now, the old quarry has filled with water, crystal clear, glowing blue-green. Cliffs rise on all sides, and walking trails wrap around the edge. In summer, tourists kayak or dive from the rocks. In winter, the canyon freezes into a glowing ice palace, and guides take visitors deep inside marble caves, lit by lanterns. But Ruskeala isn't just beautiful, it's peaceful. It's the kind of place where time slows, where the sound of dripping water echoes through stone halls and sunlight filters through pine needles like stained glass. It feels forgotten, in the best way, and once you leave its cliffs behind, the road heads west again to one of the oldest cities in Russia, with stories carved into every wall. Long before Moscow, there was Novgorod. Founded in the 9th century, this was once the center of power in ancient Rus. And at its heart stands the Novgorod Kremlin, or Detonets, the oldest Kremlin in Russia, built of red brick and surrounded by thick walls that still watch over the Volga River. Inside the walls, the Cathedral of St. Sophia stands proud, its silver domes aged by centuries of sun and snow. Built in 1045, it's one of the oldest surviving churches in the country. Novgorod was different. While other Russian cities were ruled by princes or czars, Novgorod was governed by a republic, a council of merchants, craftsmen, and elders who debated law in the city square. Art thrived here. So did writing. Thousands of birch bark manuscripts were discovered in the soil, everyday letters and messages scratched by hand, now priceless artifacts of medieval life. Walk the fortress walls at sunset, and you can feel it. This city is quieter than others, but it remembers everything. And far to the west, along the Baltic coast, another landscape waits, shaped not by rulers or stone, but by sand, wind, and time. It's narrow, just a sliver of land, stretching nearly 100 kilometers, 62 miles between the Baltic Sea and Curonian Lagoon. But the Curonian Spit is one of the strangest and most beautiful landscapes in Russia. A UNESCO World Heritage Site shared with Lithuania, it's a living sculpture of sand dunes, pine forests, and migrating birds. Some dunes are over 60 meters high, about 200 feet, and they move slowly with the wind, swallowing forests and reshaping the land each year. Locals call it the dancing forest because in one section, the trees twist into spirals and loops, bent by wind, salt, and mystery. But this land has seen more than nature. During Soviet times, radar stations and secret listening posts were hidden in the trees. Now, only foundations remain, buried in sand. The Curonian Spit is fragile. In some places, it's only 400 meters wide, less than a quarter mile, and one strong storm could change it forever. And at the far end of the Spit lies a city unlike any other in Russia, because it's not really in Russia at all. You cross a border, the signs change, and suddenly you're in Kaliningrad, a Russian city surrounded by Poland, Lithuania, and the European Union. This is an exclave, a piece of Russia completely cut off from the rest. But Kaliningrad has never been ordinary. It was once called Königsberg, part of Prussia, home to philosophers like Immanuel Kant. You can still visit his grave near the old cathedral, standing beside modern buildings and Soviet-era blocks. The architecture is a collage, German Gothic, Russian brutalism, European postmodernism, and somewhere in between, a new identity forming. Walk along the Volga River and you'll find the Amber Museum, housed in an old German fort. The Baltic Sea is rich with amber fossilized tree resin, and Kaliningrad is its capital. Locals feel both Russian and not. There's a different rhythm here, a different history, a different future. And for many, Kaliningrad is the end of the journey. But for others, the journey is the story, one written across 9,000 kilometers of track. It begins in Moscow, and it doesn't stop until the Pacific Ocean. The Trans-Siberian Railway is the longest railway line in the world, stretching 9,289 kilometers, or about 5,772 miles, from Moscow to Vladivostok. 7 time zones, dozens of cities, thousands of stories. It crosses forests, rivers, mountains, and borders, a moving thread that stitches Russia together from end to end. Some people ride it all at once, 7 days without leaving the train. Others get off, explore, return. In a way, it's not just a train, it's a state of mind. You'll share cabins with strangers, hear lullabies of steel on rail, drink tea in glass mugs held by silver holders. And outside your window, the scenery changes like turning pages in a book. Birch forests, icy lakes, empty plains, then cities pulsing with light. It's the only way to truly feel the scale of Russia. And after everything you've seen, from volcanoes to palaces, deserts to domes, it all comes together here. One journey, one country, endless wonders. We crossed 11 time zones, from frozen volcanoes to golden palaces, from deserts hidden in snow to cities older than history. And somehow, we never left one country. Russia isn't just vast, it's impossible to define. And even after all this, we've only scratched the surface. Thank you for joining the journey. See you in the next one.